Hello and welcome to this edition of Intelligent Video Today. I'm your host, Steve Vonderhaar. Joining us on today's episode, Sam Bogoch, CEO over at Axle AI. Welcome, Sam.
Great to be here.
Well, we appreciate you joining us. Why don't you tell us a little bit about Axle AI and your approach there for enabling video search?
Sure thing. It's one of these things that, in retrospect, is probably obvious, but uh, over the last few years, as the technology's improved, it's gotten to the point where you can actually find stuff in video, and you don't have to sit and watch the whole thing. So the long and the short of what we do is we make video searchable, whether it's on premise, like on storage devices in your network, or in the cloud. And our software makes it super easy to find the right parts of your content and then repurpose it for things like social media.
Now, you cut your teeth at Axle AI being an on premises provider recently, adding cloud capabilities. Are there certain advantages to doing this stuff on premises versus with a cloud solution?
Oh, there are actually massive advantages. In fact, I would say most folks that own their content are highly focused on doing this on premise. And there's a generalized awareness, even beyond the media industry. I saw a survey a couple days ago that I think 69% of CIOs would like to have AI deployed on premise rather than in the public cloud. And the reason is we're all reading the same articles about stuff getting scraped. And you don't know when you send things to the cloud for processing, you don't know what's being done with it from there. And in fact, the terms of service of some of the largest providers like Amazon Recognition, their standard terms of service are that anything you submit to them, they can keep for subsequent training. And that training could turn into some Gen AI product a couple of years from now. Your own content could end up spat out the other side looking a whole lot like it originally did, but just different enough to avoid copyright infringement. So nobody wants that. So I'd say the majority of our customers are saying, I want it on-prem. The other big advantage of having it on-premise is the cost. Typically, these cloud services for AI are charging per hour of footage, and sometimes there's additional charges like egress fees and so forth on top of that. Whereas if you do it on-prem, first of all, there are no egress fees. And second of all, you make a one-time purchase of some hardware and some software licenses. You're not paying per hour of processing as you go. And by the way, the corollary, there's a third piece that's a little more subtle, which is that what if you want to reprocess stuff? AI is getting better all the time at a furious pace. So let's say you have 1,000 hours of footage and you want to send it out to get processed. You send it, you pay your whatever, $10 an hour, $10,000, you're out. Now, a year from now, everything's going to be better. The face recognition, the scene understanding, the emotion understanding, nuances, it's going to pick things up. Guess what? You got to spend $10,000 all over again if you're using a cloud service. If you're doing it on premise, you run it through your hardware and software, and it's a much more manageable ongoing cost and a more predictable cost, right? You're not going to get hit by like, oh my gosh, we got to run this through again. I can talk a little more about the scenarios where that would happen, but there are plenty of them.
Yeah, there really is a yin and yang between doing these capabilities on premises and starting to leverage some of these video search utilities offered by some of the core AI platforms, your Anthropics, OpenAIs, and the like. How has the emergence of these utilities changed market expectations for video search in recent years? Do they bring capabilities that raise expectations in terms of how easily we can find a particular video passage?
Well, I think they're great for generating awareness. Um, Very few people have used them in a production sense on thousands of hours of footage, but we've all seen the demos and it's like, wow, this is pretty cool. So it's just enough to kind of pique people's interest, and then they want to figure out how they can make it real in their actual day-to-day workflows. So the other thing I will say is that the first wave of these things have been highly proprietary and public cloud only, right? So just going back as far as last year, the whole chat GPT boom, you had to run it at OpenAI, you had to pay for it if you wanted to use it in volume, and it was proprietary to them. You couldn't just download it and run it on a GPU. over the last year, since that really kicked off, you now see more and more open source models and models that can be tuned and modified to specific use cases. Meta in particular deserves like a gold star for doing this because and Google is somewhere in between. Like if OpenAI is all the way towards, hey, we'll take care of this and we're going to charge you for a subscription. Google is somewhere in the middle. They're talking about, you know, different scales of deployment all the way down to mobile devices, and some will be chargeable and some won't be, et cetera. But Meta has decided they're going to come out and be the good guys here. They're open sourcing almost everything they do, and they're scaling almost everything they do so that it can be deployed from everything from your, you know, typical gaming GPU all the way up to private cloud deployment and public cloud. What's great about that is that they're kind of the leading edge of a wave of more open source technology and more flexibly deployed technology. So I guess what we're seeing is people see it for the first time wherever they see it, whether it's Google or OpenAI or Meta. And then they say, well, now how do I do this? And as long as the components are there, and you know, all you have to do is look at Hugging Face, that the components are there, right? Everything is there. It's a question of making it work with your data set, your use case, and your compute resources. So it's been a huge driver. We probably had twice as many people, in fact, almost exactly twice as many people inquire about our product at NAB this year, the big trade show in Vegas, than we did last year. And last year was already pretty darn busy. So next year, we're probably going to have to get a bigger booth. It's just gotten to that point. And everyone wants to see how they can make AI work for them.
Yeah, it just really illustrates what a topsy-turvy world AI creates for us when Meta starts getting cast as the good guy out there, huh?
I never thought I'd see the day, but maybe, you know, Zuckerberg got tired of always wearing the black hat.
Yeah.
So
So who are the primary customers for Axle AI? We're talking a lot about private cloud. So does that mean just media companies there, or is there opportunities for private cloud implementation for corporate enterprise video users as well?
absolutely. I mean, we have big corporate customers like Coca-Cola, Kellogg's, Reebok. Um, and that's just the beginning. Only a fraction of our business, less than a quarter, is what you would typecast as a media company. You know, the obvious there, the BBC or Warner Brothers, these kinds of things. So we have some of those, but the overwhelming majority of our customers are teams and companies who have a lot of media, but you wouldn't instantly recognize them. Oh, that's a big media company. Everything from YouTubers. There's a whole emerging class of YouTubers that have tons of footage, often petabytes, but you know, more commonly hundreds of terabytes. They need to search and repurpose it constantly. Churches are a big market. Houses of worship generally, but specifically churches here in the U.S., but also in Asia Pacific region. Sports teams are another great one. And the interesting thing about sports teams is there's a steady democratization of content that's happening in sports, where it used to be the networks essentially owned the content. Then the leagues said, hey, wait a minute, you know, there's a lot of content that the networks didn't license, like the interview footage and the pregame and this and that. We're gonna start corralling that. Then the team said, hey, wait a minute, what about us? We're the team, you know. It's like if somebody interviews our coach in our interview room, we should own that footage. So now the teams often do, right? And then it's come down to the individual athletes. So people like LeBron James and Steph Curry have their own media companies and their own media teams that not only follow them around and cover what they do, but actually work with other sports figures and celebrities. They do scripted material, they do unscripted. It's gotten completely out of control. So sports is another vertical. Government is yet another. One of our best customers is the governor of the state of New York, but we have multiple states and other governments that are using our software, typically for, you know, what you'd expect, really: interviews, speeches, you know, all kinds of footage of different events and locations, and the list goes on from there. So essentially, it's wherever video is accumulating and being shot, often these days in 4K.
Yeah, and when you start talking about government users and corporate enterprise users, a young IT's person thoughts always run to security, right? The security is always going to play a role in corporate decision making, particularly as it relates to AI implementation. In what way can an on-premise approach from somebody like Axel make your solution more appealing to corporate customers from a security perspective?
Well, it's the same advantages that it would have for a media company, right? Which is your content does not need to leave your firewall. It's you own it. It's not going anywhere. You don't have to worry about outtakes showing up on somebody's website. There's all kinds of examples in political history of hot mics and things that were said that just nobody thought about it, and then months or years later, those are used against them. So the idea that your footage is your footage, and you get to edit it and not worry that it's going to leak or be used as training materials for somebody's Gen AI is hugely attractive. And also, you can train it. There are other advantages as opposed to the private cloud. For instance, one of the modules in our software is facial recognition, and it comes with a whole bunch of celebrities and so forth. But if you're using it on a dedicated instance, you can train it for the people that you care about. So if you're a corporation, you want your CEO, all your executive staff, your key marketing people, your key technologists, those can all be trained. And then if any of them appears in some footage, you're like, hey, we really need footage of the CTO talking about sustainability or whatever. You can find that footage very quickly because they're tagged for you. In a public cloud instance, unless they're celebrities, that's probably not going to happen. And it goes further down the line than that. What if you want to train it on particular products or particular logos, locations, buildings that your company is located at, things like that. So all of this stuff can be fine-tuned for what you need it to do without concern that this will become fodder for somebody else's global or public model.
Absolutely. So you do have that focus on the on-premises solutions that are highly secure, but even you can't be blind to the growth of cloud-based options in the marketplace. And recently, at that NAB show that you mentioned, you announced a partnership with Backblaze that
Yes, it's
addresses
hard to say. It's hard to say three times fast.
yeah, don't
Yes.
make me say it three times fast, please. But
No, good.
Backblaze gives you a window into the cloud marketplace. So tell us about the capabilities that are enabled by your partnership there.
Sure. Well, Backblaze has amazing storage. They've been at it for ages. They have, you know, many exabytes under management. They are the leading independent vendor of backup storage in the cloud, and it's all S3 compatible. So from a technology standpoint, it's the same as talking to Amazon storage or another vendor. Um, what's nice though is they don't charge egress fees, and their costs are very reasonable, and they're highly reliable. So it's kind of a trifecta. We then run our layer on top of that, which takes Backblaze storage, even new storage that you've just spun up, because you uploaded some videos, and makes it searchable, right? So where this is extremely useful is for people who have a ton of footage, but not so much that they've seen fit to have a large on-premise deployment of our software. Because there are costs. When you run our software on-premise, you need typically a couple of servers. I mean, it can be workstations, one can be a Mac, but still, you're talking about real hardware being devoted to this purpose. You also typically have to have some fairly robust storage hardware to hold all the terabytes or even petabytes. Whereas in the cloud, you don't have to worry about any of that. You just upload the stuff, and Backblaze even has the ability to just upload. They have what they call their firewall. You can upload by copying stuff onto a network device and then just FedEx it to them, and they'll copy it at the other end. So you don't even have such a challenge in terms of bandwidth uploading all the material. Anyway, so
Well,
once it's there, we make it searchable. And all the same things that we can do with the on-premise product, face recognition, object recognition, transcription, logos, OCR, looking for numbers and text on the screen. We can do all of that, but in the cloud. And what that does is it transforms previously, I hate to call it dumb storage, but previously kind of hands-off cloud storage where you have, you know, a bucket called such and such, but you have no idea what's in that bucket, to now it's like, oh, okay, in the 39th minute, you know, to use my previous example, there's our CTO talking about sustainability or whatever it is you're looking for. So you can, the other thing that it gives you, our cloud software, is a browser interface that's very intuitive. So it's not just about the underlying technology platform, it's then layering something where you can do review and approval and add your own metadata tags on top of what the AI has done, even in some cases correct what the AI has done. So essentially, it becomes a universe for collaboration, and then you can send things out to people, get comments back, do even threaded commentary. So just a huge range of stuff, up to and including delivering low res or high res to collaborators that may work at other companies. And so there are real benefits. Those are some of the benefits of having it in the cloud. You can do a portion of that with the on-premise product using a technology called reverse proxy, where essentially you're making your on-premise stuff look like it's in the cloud. But by actually having it in the cloud, there are clear benefits, and then all the other benefits of not having to buy your own hardware, do your own deployment, you know, manage updates, things like that.
A way to trim the costs a little bit if you can do it on the cloud side for sure, and anything that helps reduce the cost of using AI driven search always helps with the implementation. But really, you're speaking our language when you talk about the ability to retrieve knowledge from video files. That's why we call it intelligent video. Literally, we're able to crack open these files and draw out information that we've never been able to do before. So, look in your crystal ball, if you will, for me, thinking about the future of video search over the next 3 to 5 years. How is the integration of AI going to be reflected in your product roadmap over the intermediate term there?
So it's our belief that in the time frame that you're describing, that all video is going to become searchable. And the only reason it might not be searchable is that for whatever reason, people left it on a shelf or put it in a cloud bucket and forgot about it. But if you want your media to be searchable and perhaps more importantly, reusable, then it will be. And that's something I think today on a percentage, if you were to look at what percentage of the world's video is searchable, it's single digits. It's, you know, 1, 2, 3% at most. And we think that number is going to skyrocket over the next few years. And again, the only hurdles at some point will just be, hey, I saved it someplace where, you know, I can't get at it, or I can't be bothered because there's too much of it and it's too old. But in principle, almost any video will be searchable. To give you an idea, the Axel AI cloud product we just rolled out with Backblaze, that costs $20 per terabyte per month, which is actually less expensive than the corresponding dumb storage on Amazon S3. So that's without any value added, without even egress fees, which they charge. So the reality is your cost would be a fair bit higher than that. And so we've already managed to make it less expensive than just parking it somewhere. And that's today, given today's technology and GPUs and software and everything else. It's only going to get more efficient from here. So we'll either be adding capabilities at that same price point or finding ways to get the cost down even further. And so essentially all video is going to be searchable, which is super cool and opens up tremendous vistas for reuse, for kind of all kinds of knowledge-based applications and marketing stuff, right? I mean, let's be real. There's TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, all the ways that people use video. They're always looking for some snippet. They want to see something that happened. A great example is in the case of sports teams, their sponsors are always looking for something that happened with their logo in the background, right? So like, I want to see a great catch that just happens to be in front of a Coca-Cola logo. With our software, you can find that. You can find the combination of the sports highlight and the logo in the frame. And then it's like, okay, that's my new ad, right? Because I sponsored that. I put that there, but rather than making somebody sit through 2 hours of a baseball game, now there's the moment where there was an awesome catch right in front of that sign.
When you say
that's
that,
only one example of many. Sorry, go
Yeah,
ahead.
no, no. When you say that all video is searchable, that is akin to one of our catchphrases here in IntelliVid Research is that really video gets on a level playing field, digitally speaking, with text, numbers, and images, and we're able to manipulate those data types. We've been able to manipulate those data types for the past 30 years. Now it's video's turn to step up to the table, and that really opens up significant opportunities, doesn't it?
It does. And there's so much more of it, of course, just because, especially when you're shooting in HD or 4K, the file sizes are ginormous. So, uh, as a percentage of the world's data, it's growing very rapidly. But now that data is navigable, right? And before it wasn't.
Yeah.
Although I will say things like YouTube, I mean, went a long way towards bringing that out. Like, think of the old TV model where you just sit there and you click between a dozen channels or what have you. Then maybe an advance from that is Netflix, where you can see little thumbnails of the shows you want, and maybe watch a preview and then watch the movie, right? And then YouTube, or even TikTok is probably the next step, where it's just getting tossed at you based on what your implied preferences. But you can kind of navigate that world and see what you want to see with a much shorter latency than the traditional models of watching TV or even going to Netflix. Things are happening in seconds or at most minutes, and that just means you can see a lot more stuff that's of interest to you.
Yeah,
And there's 8 billion consumers out there.
it's an exciting future, and video search is the absolute epicenter of all those capabilities that are going to be coming down the pike. So we appreciate you, Sam Bogoch, CEO of Axle AI. Thanks so much for taking the time and sharing your insight on the world of video search with us.
My pleasure. Thanks a bunch.
And we thank you for taking the time to watch today's episode. If you'd like access to future editions of Intelligent Video Today, go to the link right below there on YouTube channel. Subscribe to it, and you'll get notifications when future interviews are posted with thought leaders like Sam Bogoch. For IntelliVid Research and Intelligent Video Today, I'm Steve Vonderhaar. Thanks for your time.